Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Graingeal. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Okay, welcome to the next episode of Sausage on a Fork. I'm very happy to say that I've been joined for this episode by Mark Baxter, who played Duane Orpington. Mark, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. Really good to have you. Okay, what we'll do, Mark, is we'll just go right back to the beginning. We'll jump straight in. And if you can just tell us how you got acting and how it all started for you.
I had a lucky break.
Right.
And basically, my lucky break was that I got run over by a bus and and broke my leg in two places.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah. And literally from there, the doctor said that I would always walk with a heavy limp.
Right.
And then I went to see a real specialist, and the specialist said to my mother, she said, if you take him now for dancing lessons and strengthening exercises, there's a chance we can reduce the limp. So that's exactly what my mum did. And I went to Barbara Speaks to her dancing classes.
Uh-huh.
And literally I went there for about 3 or 4 weeks before she said to my mother, send him to my school.
Right.
And my mum was a one-parent family. So my mum said, listen, there's no way that I can afford, the fees to send him to your school.
Uh-huh.
And so then Barbara said, don't worry about the fees. What we'll do is we'll do it as a fee-earning basis. And so any work that he gets would then pay for his fees. She said, I'll take a chance. And that was the start, really. And that had two very positive sort of impacts on me. One was that it did the job with strengthening my leg. And basically, you can't really tell that I've got a limp at all now. Uh-huh. And also, because she took the chance on me, literally, she sent me for everything.
Right.
So, do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
She wanted to get her money. So literally, I was going for jobs for little girls, and
yeah.
whatever. Do you need a pantomime dog? I've got just the boys sitting there. That was right. Me. That was the kind of job I got. So that was really the start of everything. And thankfully, I was very lucky that I did okay.
Yeah, because I've read an interview with you a while back, and it said you ended up in something like 70 adverts. Is that right? Wow, that's an incredible for a child actor. That's like an incredible amount. That's, for any actor, I imagine that's an incredible amount of work to get.
The thing is that especially back in the 70s, uh-huh. that you had the likes of the Scott brothers, Ridley Scott was in advertising.
Right.
J. Water Thompson were in advertising. And what they tended to do was that if you did a good job for them as a child, uh-huh. They would sell you to their next clients for their commercial.
Right.
So I would end up being the flavour of the month for a company. Uh-huh. So I would do like 3 or 4 commercials for the same company.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, so the same company for me did like the Green Cross Code advert that I did, and then went straight into a Mushy Peas advert, that went straight into an OXO advert.
Right.
So do you know, because they knew that I could take direction, because they do take, children, that it is a risk sometimes, uh-huh. as to, how good they're going to be. So I was very lucky that I had one of those faces that fitted at the right time.
Yeah.
And so, I did. I literally went on and I did 70 plus commercials. So it was a great learning ground for me.
Yeah, I mean that is, as I say, like that for any actor, that's an amazing amount of work, I would imagine. And then as well as that, you also got some sort of bit parts in TV programs as well. Yeah,
I did quite a few things. At the time, the BBC were doing quite a lot of period dramas and things like that. So for them, I did a thing called The Fall of Eagles. And then we did a film called Barry Lyndon, which was with Ryan O'Neill.
Right.
And so there was literally all these things that was going on, and I was lucky, like I say, to get quite a bit of TV work, and went on from there.
So how did then Graingeal come about?
Graingeal came about really because I was in the West End. I was playing Oliver.
All right.
in the West End, and Colin Camp came to see Oliver, and literally said, "I'd like to see Mark for a screen test, for this program." And I didn't know which program it was, even though the Graingeal had been running for 2 years, and I was very aware of Graingeal as a program. Yeah. I wasn't aware that was what he was looking to do. Right. And then he came to Barbara Speaks, because he was looking for a couple of other parts as well. And he literally said, "We want you to read for this. We think you'll be perfect for this. Let's see how good you can deliver." And I was literally, I did one reading, and then I was offered the job the next day. Really, it was a fabulous thing for me. Yeah, going from the West End into the biggest children's television program that's ever been.
Yeah. So were you? You said you were aware of it. Did you watch Graingeal then?
Yeah, I mean, I'd worked with Todd before that anyway, in a program called The Headmaster. Which had Frank Windsor in it, who used to be in Z Cars. It was his sort of next show, as it were. Right. And there were quite a few, and literally I spent a whole episode being chased around this school by Phil Daniels, who then obviously went on to Quadrophenia and stuff, you know. So, but Todd and I were in sort of these things. So I've been interested in the Graingeal thing, because obviously Todd was in it, and a few of the friends from school were in it, and everybody was talking about it, because it was, this program that came on that changed the face really of children's television, especially the BBC, and then to suddenly be told you're in the, you're the next class, as it were, was incredible. Yeah,
because you were sort of the next cohort that came in, when what was it like joining the program then?
I will always say that our year 3. Probably had the hardest job in children's television of that time, purely because the guys, the casting for the first year with George, Todd, obviously, Terry, Michelle Herbert, and then of course the others came in. They were so good that we had to come in and sustain that, and also make the BBC take notice to carry it on. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the first year could have been perceived to have been a one-off. Yeah. And then bring a second lot in who were rubbish, absolute rubbish, and then they could have shut the whole thing down. So it's a lot of pressure. So I always say that we had the hardest job we did to come in and take on that mantle, really.
I could completely understand that. So you joined with the likes of Peter Moran, Amanda Mealing, and people like that. Who were you sort of closest to and sort of best friends with on the show then?
Well, on the show then, well, I can't really say that we were all best friends, because we all came from such different, diverse parts and backgrounds as such. Obviously with Pete, I had the majority of all my my scenes with Peter. Yeah. And he was such a lovely guy anyway. And the thing with Peter was that he literally turned up on day one of our filming with a broken arm. Right. And so he wasn't supposed to have a broken arm. No. I think I mean, he might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he fell from an escalator and broke his arm. Right. So Peter really had a broken arm from the June until the following February. Right. Because he had to do every scene that we did. Yeah. Well, because it was the longest broken arm in the history of television when you think about it, right? Because we did all of our filming, all the outside stuff in the summer and all the inside stuff in the winter. Right. So it all had to be the continuity of it. So hence, when we steal the putty from the window frames, he's putting it into his broken arm. So they literally wrote it into to who he was, but he wasn't supposed to have a broken arm. It was one of those things that happened. But he was so good, and of course, Amanda Mealing, who was just fabulous, but just decided that after one series that she didn't want to be typecast, really. Right. I don't know whatever happened to her. I'm sure she went and done something else somewhere. But again, and so we had a good crowd, And to be fair, a lot of the first, the higher group, they literally sort of took us in and sort of shielded us a little bit from, because we didn't really. I don't think that at my year especially really understood how the public, how the school children had reacted to Graingeal, because we were all at stage schools. Do you know what I mean? If you look at that second group, my group that came in, there was myself and Barbara Speaks. There was Peter and Mark Bishop, who played Michael Green, Benny's brother. They were both from Corona. Right. Then you had Amanda, who was at Italia Conti. Do you see what I mean? So we were all from a stage school background, and literally then you go out onto the streets after my first episode aired, my whole teenage years changed. Right. My whole life, changed a bit. Yeah. It was just bizarre. It was bizarre. So that's really it was. So the older group sort of said to us, look, this is going to happen. Don't do this, don't do that, and see. And it was, they were great with us. They were. Yeah, no,
and that is nice, isn't it? That they were like that as well, because I suppose it could have been really easy for them to have just acted big heads. We're the stars of this program. What are you doing coming into our program? Like it could have been easy for them to do that, I suppose.
My first morning, Peter and I were sitting in Television Centre at White City, and we were scared crapless, basically. Right? We were there thinking, what's going to happen? And the other guys, they all came in because they came in together. And Terry came over to us and literally said, "Welcome to the show." Do you know what I mean? Hi guys, how you do? And he says, "I'm Terry." And that's the most lasting memory I have of that day. Right. Really. Yeah. Because it was just such a nice thing to do. Yeah. He sort of said, "I remember what my first day was like." And he said, "If you could make it a bit," then it was fabulous.
Brilliant. So who did you enjoy working with? Was there anyone where you thought, I've got a scene with this person today, or anything like that? Was there anyone that you've really enjoyed working with?
No, I used to really enjoy working with, you used to get a buzz when you were working with, obviously with Todd, Terry or George. These are the guys that were running that bit, But I really got quite a buzz when I was working with some of the adults. Right. When you're suddenly working with Michael Cronan, Bullet Baxter, and you think, wow, okay. All right. And later on, obviously, we're with Mr. Hopwood, Brian Capron, who was fabulous with the children, with kids. He was really good with us. And there were some great actors. There was Robert Hartley as well, who played Mr. Keating. Yeah. In those first, there was some really good adult acts, and I learned a lot from those guys, really. With the kids, I think that we were sort of too much in that bubble where we worked with everybody and we just loved every day we came to work, as it were, Yeah. So there was nobody that I would really say, I can't wait to have a scene with them, really, because I enjoy. I said that about every day.
Right. Okay.
There you go. So there you have it.
and you've just mentioned a couple of the adults there. What was the relationship like between the adults and the kids?
I mean, for some of them, we were very much those pesky kids. It was a bit like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Right. But for a lot of the adults, they were so willing to sort of bring us in, and Brian will say that he learned a lot from some of the kids, the way the sort of the natural ability that a lot of the kids had. But but there was that. You could always tell there was that divide, really. That you're the child actors, we're the adult actors. We're actually the ones getting paid real money. You're just getting buttons. That was the that's what you got from them, really.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any sort of favourite storylines? Because Dwayne was involved in quite a lot in the time that you were there. And do you have any sort of favourite storylines or episodes in particular?
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne was used quite a lot, really, for sort of testing out the water of stuff. When you think that it was him and Sexy Lexi, basically. Right, there was that sort of thing, and it sort of came as quick as it went. But it went as quick as it came, rather. But then in the following season, or the following, series, basically, it was a lot more in depth with Claire and Mr. Hopwood. So they, you see what I mean? So they use that there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had some really good storylines. You know, the triangle with Claire and Stu Pop as well.
Yeah.
But of course, the one that's always going to be the one that people ask me the most about is the racism.
Right.
The racism storyline, which was so cleverly put together. You know, in different aspects of everything. That you know, whenever people talk about the history of Graingeal, there are two storylines that they always put in their top 5, even top 3, and that will be Zammo drugs and the racism story with Gripper. Yeah, they will always be in their top 2 or 3, and of course it was quite shocking for that time. Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, we talk about it now as everybody will go, "Oh, really? Is that, you know?" But then it was shocking.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a couple of them recently. I watched a couple in preparation for this, and it wouldn't be allowed on kids' telly now. Not a chance. And I think then it was shock. It was, you say, it was shocking because like, I know we always say, you know, there was nothing like Graingeal on the telly at that time, but there was certainly on kids' telly, there'd never been anything like that at all.
I mean, when we looked at kids' television, children's television, I don't think that the children of today understand that there was only, when Graingeal started, there were only 3 channels that we were able, you know, that people were able to watch. And when it came to children's television, you either got Andy Pandy, or, you know, looking through the round window, or do you know what I mean? Or you had adults playing children. Yeah, you know, you had the Fen Street Gang, and you had things like that. Do you know what I mean? So you know, all those things. So this Graingeal was the first time that you saw children running a whole show as children. Yeah, and Phil's writing from his time growing up and stuff, you know, was so phenomenal. Yeah, and so close to the knuckle at times. You know, it's like he says that every school, every class in his school had one child that always had a nickname. They never had a real name. You never knew them by their real name. So hence, do you know what I mean? So hence, you always get a Tucker, a Pogo, right? You get a Zammo, you get a Gonch. You see what I mean? You never. Right? Because we all got one. We've all got one. Yeah. So again, and I love that about it. It was really gritty, and it was great writing. Yeah.
So when they were, this is something I've always wondered about. When you were filming the racism scenes and stuff, and the fights and stuff, this is just my own thing from a behind the scenes perspective. Is you were all called Mark. So how did the directors get around that? Because I always think,
because we would get individual notes, basically. Right. We get individual notes. So we get pulled away to say, listen, on that take, you did this, we'd rather you did that. Right. Rather than it be a general note, because like you say, we'd all go, what? Yeah. What? But yeah, for sure. But they were so well choreographed anyway that we all knew what we had to do. And I still think that the scene in the toilets, you know, the final Gripper scene in the toilet, I think we only did 2 takes on. Right. That. I think that it was because we knew how important that particular scene was going to be, because we've been building up to it for so long. And everybody was just right on it. You could feel the electricity in the whole place. It was great. It was.
You can tell.
It was mad.
Yeah, you can tell it. You can tell everyone's on it.
It really was.
Especially
we were there.
Michael Cronan and Mark Savage. I think are brilliant in that scene. And Mark Savage, he hardly says anything in that scene, and you can just tell. You can tell how good an actor he is from hardly saying anything at all. Like, I just think it's brilliant. One thing I did want to ask you about was in your first series, so series 3, one of your first storylines was you turn up to school with a black eye, and it became apparent that Dwayne was quite scared of his dad, and that probably wasn't the first time that had happened. But then that storyline just seemed to fade out.
Just stopped. It was sent down the pipe, basically, from the people above, basically.
Right.
I think that it was, we're talking about 1980, 81. They deemed that to be over the line at that time. And then consequently 3-4 years later they do the drugs thing.
Yeah.
But that's how quickly things sort of accelerated. But the domestic abuse and the abuse of a child like that, they touched on it and left it open, but the idea was they were going to take it even further. Right. But the block was put onto it, I believe. Right. It's a shame because that would have been a really good storyline. Yeah,
it would have been. It was one I watched the other day. What amazed me was one of the teachers says to Dwayne, "Where'd you get your black eye from?" And he went, "Oh, my dad did it." And it was basically like, "Oh, right, okay." That was the attitude. Like, "Oh, right, okay, yeah." On your way.
Because in every other show that you ever see, when someone's got a black eye and they're asked, "Where'd you get that from?" they all say they walk into a door.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for someone saying your dad did it, and it could be, "Oh, okay, that's perfectly acceptable."
Yeah,
you go right and move on.
Yeah, it just seemed like, obviously it was of its time, because there was a lot of things in Graingeal were of their time, a lot of things that got said and done, but that just seemed amazing to me. It was just like, "Oh, right, okay, yeah, your dad done it, okay,
yeah, that's all right then."
let's move the conversation on then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I do think that would have been a really good storyline to get to grips with, and it was a shame that they couldn't take it further at the time.
I think they also realised at that sort of halfway through series 3 that the dynamics of that year weren't working 100%. Right. So basically, what they done was, and I think this was a mistake that they made when they were transitioning from the first year to our year, was that they literally took exactly the same blueprint from series 1 and 2 and added it to this year coming in. So you had the cheeky, you had the boy next door, right? Which was me, obviously. You had the slightly overweight one, which was Peter. Yeah. You had Benny's brother.
Yeah.
You then had 2 girls, which was like the Trisha and the Kathy.
Yeah.
So we had the Tracy and the Karen. Do you see what I mean? So, but it was too close to the first set of boys, first set of cast, and it didn't work. It really didn't work because there was too many siblings and there was just too much interaction. There was from other years. So that's why in series 4. I mean, as I say, Amanda didn't want to do series 4 anyway. She decided she wasn't doing anymore. But that is then when you have the birth really of Stu, Pop, Claire, and Gripper.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they come in. Do you know what I mean? And of course Susan Tully.
Yeah. Because I think they came in series 4, but you were still first years. I couldn't quite work it out. I've watched it a couple of times, and it's a little bit tricky to try and work out. I think they're still first years, and then the change happens. The change happens halfway through. I think I could well be wrong on that. Like, but
I can tell you now that 40 years on, I still can't work it out. So there you go. So.
And you were right in the middle of it.
I was in the middle of it.
The thing I've noticed as well is when Claire comes in, it seems that she's a like for like replacement for Tracy. Even though it's not touched on, she just seems to be that, because Dwayne sort of mentions that later on. Claire's my friend. It's the same. It's the same sort of dynamic. I think, and I don't know if that was a conscious thing from the writers or whatever, but she just seems to be a like for like replacement.
And basically, I think that they already had plans for Tracy anyway.
Right.
And so they'd already started the writings of that. So then, because I think that Amanda sort of made the decision to not come back quite late on.
Right.
Okay. And so basically, they'd already had in the pipeline these X, Y, and Z for Tracy. And of course, then she goes, and then of course, then it's easy then to bring Claire in.
Yeah.
And go, right, you can have these here now then. And Paula does a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah.
Does a fantastic job.
She's brilliant. I mean, the thing is that Tracy leaving isn't even mentioned, is it? It's like, it's not even touched upon. It's just all right, okay, we carry on. And Claire's here now, and as you said, the others come in there as well. Okay, so then you're moving through, and you've done series 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then series 7 comes around, and you get to episode 12, and then that's the last we see of Duane Orpington. Now, some of people like myself and that know exactly why.
Yeah.
Why you feel, but can you just explain why?
No problem at all. Basically, I'd been suffering for nearly on 2 years prior to that with Crohn's disease. It was to begin with, and of course, you get a lot of stress. It's stress-related Crohn's disease anyway, but and of course, the job we were doing was quite stressful at times. But it literally was just getting worse and worse and worse. And to be fair to the producers, they wanted to keep me going. They wanted, because they knew that, they wanted to keep me in. Yeah. And in the middle of filming, and I just collapsed basically. Right. And that's why you saw, we were in the studios at the time, and then I was, like I say, I went to the hospital, and there was no way the hospital were going to let me come back out and finish off series 7. Right. Which is a shame, because I really did want to finish it, see it through, because there was talk of me going into the series 8 with the 6th form, but of course that was completely sort of sidebarred anyway. I had another fight on my hands, and then I had it sort of turned into sort of cancer of the bowel, as it were. Right. So I literally, I just had to concentrate on that, which was a shame, because I really wanted to finish that whole series off. I got to episode 12, and of course Paul McKenzie came in and took over the lines that I had.
Oh, right, okay.
And got to dance with Lisa East at the end, didn't he? So I was not happy. Not happy. That was worse than me. There you go.
Yeah, no, that is a shame. But as you say, obviously you had a far more important thing to deal with at that time. Yeah. Like, so, okay. So then you leave Graingeal. You've done 41 episodes. How did the treatment sort of then go then? It was,
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't want to sound too bitter.
Right. Okay.
But to be honest, the BBC dropped me like a stone.
Oh, right. Okay.
And and I was then given a sort of an explanation for that about 10 years later.
Right.
And that was because of the timing, and the newspapers were full of AIDS and stuff like that.
Right.
That pandemic. They didn't want to be associated with it, and they didn't want people to speculate and stuff like that.
Wow, really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I can understand. Okay, I got a bit more understanding, but I was bitter for a while, because I didn't. I don't think that I was treated particularly well after that by them. They never stood by me at any time, and then consequently, here we are, sort of, like I say, nearly 40 years later. And even Eureka, who did the CD, the DVDs, they even admitted me off of the cast list for season 7, which was like another one. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, that was another sort of thank you for that. I think you'll find that I'm in it for the majority. There you go. Yeah. So it's like, okay, all right, but no, I'm fine with it now. Because. To be honest with you, the last 4 or 5 years, being part of the groups online and stuff like that, and seeing the way that people still feel about the show has really sort of has brought a little bit more warmth back for me. Right, so that's it for me. Yeah,
that's good. So while you were on the show, then what was the public reaction to Dwayne like?
Really good. I mean, I can say it's really good, can't I? It was good. It was manic, and it was growing the whole time. It was you got the racism episode, for instance. Sort of, I think it was 8.4 million people, something like that.
Yeah.
Only to be beaten by the drugs episode with 10.4 million. So. When you consider that EastEnders only gets 4.5 million now, it's and I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were sort of saying that the World Cup final can because we're never in it, might only get 30,000 people. Do you know what I mean? So it is incredible. It is incredible to think that many people. So when you walk down the street, people, the sort of anonymity of it is really quite cool as well, because nobody knew my name.
Right.
They knew Dwayne,
yeah.
but they didn't know my name, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is quite strange, because you're walking and you end up going, all right, yeah, answering to someone saying, hey, Dwayne, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good, thank you very much. You're answering to, that's not even my name. So you're sort of in two worlds, as it were. I'm Mark on one side and I'm Dwayne. So yeah, so no, but it was great. I mean, you do have a couple of touch and goes, you know.
Yeah.
There are always going to be someone out there wants to make a name for themselves and stuff like that. But thankfully, I sort of, my character didn't really get too much of that. You can imagine what other characters might have. They were getting a lot more hassle than I was. No, it was good. The other thing that I think is a real testament to the cast of Graingeal, it's like I say, literally from the start right the way through the whole 30 years, is that they were able to deal with that. They were children.
Yeah.
They weren't adults. They weren't adults. They were children. And so at one of the most difficult times of their lives, they were also dealing with this, and no matter what anybody says, and again, you can understand that, is that for a 12 to 15, 16, 17-year-old to have to make sure that that everything they're wearing is literally where it should be and pristine, and do you know what I mean? And so make sure that you're not got something on there that you're not supposed to have on your teeth, that kind of stuff. The pressure is quite high. Yeah, and I think that a lot of people sort of took that for granted, if you know what I mean. They didn't actually see that part of what we had to go through at the same time. But as they say, that's the price of fame. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking there about things you had to wear. I just want to mention Duane Orpington's coat is quite iconic. I think, obviously there was a storyline when he got the paint on it, but it is quite an iconic item of clothing, I think. Was that yours, or was that wardrobe?
That was wardrobe. But the best thing was that we had a fabulous wardrobe master, Dennis, who literally sort of talked to us before we even started. So before I'd even sort of said a line as Dwayne, he said, so listen, what, I remember it absolutely vividly, like it was yesterday. It was at Northampton rehearsal rooms, because they literally brought all this stuff in, sat us down. They said, how do you think your character would dress? How do you think, what kind of style do you want him to have? And at that time, I'd already sort of gathered, we'd already sort of worked out that he was being beaten by his dad, for instance. So I said, I think that Dwayne would be quite well dressed as sort of his dad saying sorry, as it were. Do you know what I mean? And making up for stuff. Yeah. And so if you look at Dwayne has that, and it's funny because you talk about the coat. Every time that one picture of me comes up on the internet, nobody says anything about Dwayne. They all say, I had that coat. You can turn this, that's reversible, that coat. Yeah. But yeah, it's very iconic. But I was very lucky that it looks like I'm sponsored by Adidas. Right. Yeah. Everything that I'm wearing is nearly always Adidas and stuff like that. So, and I've got Farah trousers on, and I've got moccasins. And he is really quite well dressed, to be fair. Yeah. But he does, you're right. That coat makes, is far more recognisable than I am, I have to say.
Oh, lovely. So, so then after you left Graingeal, you did some more acting, but how long in the process was it before you started acting again, or were you acting straight away? No,
I literally, it was a good 2 years before I did anything again. I completely lost my appetite for it, to be honest. Again, as I said earlier, to be completely dropped like a stone, I sort of thought, well, this is not the business that I really want to be part of, to be fair. Right, I get it. And then literally, my agent said, look, I've got this commercial that's asking for you. I used to be quite good at football. And so I used to play a lot of football. And so they said, look, can you go along? And all you need to do is you need to just juggle a football. And they just want to see if you can do it. And I goes, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so this was 1986. Yeah. And so just before the World Cup of '86, Mexico of '86.
Right.
And literally, I went up for this audition against three kids from Chelsea. They were in the Chelsea,
Right,
Chelsea
okay.
Academy, right? And so I thought, oh, this is going to be good. I've got a great chance here. But it wasn't all about that. It was also about your camera craft and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So that's when my advantage came in over their advantage. And so I did this advert for the YTS scheme. Right. And I did 2 versions of it because sadly, Jock Stein had just died, you know, when he was the Scotland manager at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I did one version with Bobby Robson in this car as he sees me juggling this Coke can and kicking it into the bin. And another version with Alex Ferguson, because Alex Ferguson took over. Yeah. Because he was manager at Aberdeen. He took over, you see, from Jock Stein before he went on to Man United. I don't know whatever happened to him there. So literally, I did this commercial, which was an amazing commercial for me, because literally back then we used to get paid sort of repeat fees, right? And it was literally repeat fees for each region. So it was crazy, the money that I earned. I thought, wow, this is lovely. I can do more of these, please, Miss My Agent.
What was it like working with Bobby Robson and Alex Ferguson?
Bobby Robson was a gentleman, absolute gentleman. I mean, he stood there for a good 2 hours just talking to me about football. Right. Alex Ferguson probably said one word to me. Right. He was literally in and out by it was like, wow, non-existent. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But Bobby Robson was just a fairy tale of a man. Yeah. He was a fabulous man.
Because you played football as well, didn't you? Yeah. Because I seem to remember you scoring a worldie at Goodison Park in the Soaps Cup.
I did. I did. Yeah.
Because I was there, because I went.
Was you really?
I just remember, because I was on the Goodison Road side, and I remember you being on the Bullens Road side and hitting this absolute whale. I was 12 and I can remember it, and you hit this absolute worldie.
Because the crowd were counting down, weren't they? Do you remember? They were sort of to finish the game, and it got to literally 3, and I thought, look, we were losing as well, and I thought, I've got to hit this. And I just, what? It was a worldie. I think I went a bit mad after that, to be honest. It was a good game.
It's weird that, like I say, I was 12 years old, maybe not even 12 years old, and I remember that vividly. What a day that was as well.
Neil, it's a moment I will remember for the rest of my life, and so will anybody that will listen to the story will know as well. No, that was playing. I always say, you know what? I've scored one of the best goals in that.
I tell you what, as an Everton supporter, we could do with someone who can hit a few of them at the moment. Yeah.
But I literally went from there, and then then I became Victor Meldrew's postman. Yeah. So I'm in one foot in the grave, which again was a fantastic job for me, because it was 3 days' work, and it's my pension, purely because they used to play at the airport on a loop. Right. So you know what I mean? Yeah. And then this is why I can't stand Only Fools and Horses, because it literally took us off. Right. Now they come and took all away from us. But yes, that went on there, and literally the next story I had for you, basically, is the same kind of thing. Was that my agent sent me for an audition, and a bit earlier I was talking about how my first Barbara Speak literally sent me for everything because of the money. So my agent sent me up to the Duke of York Theatre in the West End here in London, and literally said, right, take your music, okay, you're going to do 2 songs. She said, make sure that you do the best. And I go, well, I always, you always do that. And so off I went for this theatre musical. And I walk in, and the training that we used to have was that when you walked into an audition, you gave the impression that the person for the job was just walked through the door. Right. Yeah. Right. You don't need to don't look any further. You're the guy that you want is literally right. Just walk through the door. Yeah. So you walk in like Charlie Big Time. Do you know what I mean? Here you go. Yeah. You've got your bowl going on and everything. So I've bowled straight in through the stage door, straight up, and literally gone to this girl and said, I'll come for the audition. He goes, there's my music. And she looked at me and she said, are you sure? And I said, this is the Duke of York. Yes. She said, yes. and this was a musical for black artists.
Right.
And my agent had sent me for this audition. And so I looked in the room and I could see that I was the only white guy, in there. And I thought, so she goes, I'm really sorry. And I said, I've come this far. Can I still audition? I said, what have we got to lose? And she thought it was really funny. She goes, why not? Let's see. Okay. And so then I walk onto the stage and they all fall about laughing. The director and the producer are sitting in the stalls and they're just peeing themselves, basically. And they said, you do it? I goes, yes. I said, I know. I said, but listen, I said, I've prepared for it. I might as well do it. And she goes, they said, go ahead. So I did my 2 numbers and they said, yeah, fantastic. Well done. Thank you very much. And she said, maybe we'll see you again. And I goes, I said, hopefully for the right job next time. And literally 5 weeks later, I got a phone call to say, this is the casting agent for that job, for that musical. The producer really thinks you'll be great for Once a Catholic on a national tour. Right. And they offered me the part. Of Once a Catholic.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? Sometimes you take your chance.
Yeah.
And you go, do you know what? Because I was the person that stood out on that day. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't I was any better than anybody else. It was just that I was the one that stood out.
Yeah.
And it got me a 9-month tour. So wow. So that's the sort of thing that I did once I left. But then I wasn't. It wasn't the same for me. It wasn't never the same.
Yeah. So is that when you sort of started moving away from acting then?
Yeah. I mean, I did a lot of sort of presenting as such. I went into the BBC. I went to the BBC and did a few bits for them for their training bits. Things like the broom cupboard, and things like that. So sort of the formatting and the stuff for that. And so I then went on and started to teach some presenters, television presenters. And so I was lucky. I went and sort of made a living out of that for a while. But then again, I just thought it wasn't enough to feed the family. Were you in? And then a friend.
Were you in Press Gang as well? Sorry, were you in Press Gang
as well?
Yeah, because I've seen your name, but I've tried watching a couple.
I think it was his name was Martin. They gave him a name of Martin. Right. And to be honest with you, I was sitting at home. This was 1989. I can tell you exactly when it was, 1989. And I was sitting at home and I was bored out of my mind, and literally bored out of my mind. And again, my agent said, look, it literally is just you in the offices here. There's nothing, mate. I goes, listen, I don't care.
Yeah.
I said, it's at Pinewood Studios. It's at Pinewood. It's easy for me to get to. It's an easy summer. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it was great because I obviously worked with Dexter Fletcher and Julius Wahara and Maluki, of course, who was in it too.
Yeah. Michelle Gale. Michelle Gale was there.
Yeah, Michelle Gale was in. Yeah, I know.
Quite a bit of a great.
I knew Michelle anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle was in at the same school as myself, and she was in my brother's year, so I knew Michelle anyway. I went on did a series of that as well. I thought, okay, that's cool.
So then, when you've moved away from the acting, then what did you do then?
I've just got my head down, done a lot of stuff. I mean, a friend of mine started to do the Knowledge in London to be a black cab driver.
Right.
And literally, he sort of said, this is the hardest thing that anybody could ever do. He said, you could never do it. And that's like a red rag to a bull, And I said, okay, what do I need to do? And literally, he said, it's 4 years. It's 4 years of studying and going to and so I said, right, okay. And so 2 years, 2 months later, I had my badge.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but you see, the thing with that was that it was all about memory. And again, from my acting days, the one thing that we tap into is our memory.
Yeah.
And so I was very lucky that I could go back to my acting days and rely on that, and so that really helped me a lot. And then I still to this day still teach people how to pass the knowledge in London.
Right,
here,
right, okay.
You know, so many things, and sort of I'm now involved with the Good Grief Trust, which is run by. Obviously,
do you want to explain a little bit more about that? Because obviously, any Graingeal fans, I think, would be quite interested.
I mean, a lot of our to be fair, a lot of the people that will watch this have supported us throughout the last 4 to 5 years. They've been the Graingeal fans have been phenomenal to the Good Grief Trust. And for those that don't know, it literally is a charity that was started by Linda Magistris, who obviously she was Linda Slater back in the sort of 1970, 79, and she played Susie, who was Alan's girlfriend. And I went to one of these reunion, or what they call it, Comic-Cons, don't they now, that, you know, and I met up with Linda again, and it's a bereavement charity, and it's something just touched me about it. And I said, look, if you ever need any help, then I'm willing to help. And so I very quickly became an ambassador for Linda and for the trust. And then sadly, I lost my brother a year ago. Right. Literally a year ago last Thursday. And to be honest with you, until then, the losses that I had sort of from a bereavement point of view was my grandfather and my grandmother, which really is what you would class as the natural order of things. So it was, you know, it was very, very sad, and it hurt, but nowhere near as much as it did when you lose your younger brother, right, because you're thinking that he's going to be the one to be, you know, helping you through your dark times. So I really got it then. And so Linda asked me to be a trustee. So I'm now a trustee, and we've literally gone on, and it's now, I would say it's now the probably in the top 2, top 3 bereavement charities in the country. Excellent. Yeah. We need it now because obviously, you know, the last sort of 18 to 20 months that we've had, we, you know, with all these poor souls that have lost their lives through COVID, and it's the people that get left behind, you see. Yeah. And there's people out there that have been grieving by themselves, and that's not a natural way to deal with grief. No. There you go. That's my.
No, that's all right. No, yeah. I just I follow the Good Grief Trust on all social media, and what they do is fantastic as well. Like, and it's testament to Linda, isn't it? You know, how she's done it. Like, okay. So obviously you're still in touch with Linda now, but are you in touch with any other members of the cast?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to Paula most weeks. Right. And George is also a trustee of Good Grief Trust. So, right. So I talk to George regularly. I always talk to Lisa East. Yeah. And of course, the one I can't get rid of is Joanne Boakes. Right. You know, because she was always a little minx, you see. She was always a little minx. Love Joanne to bits because, you know, there was the 3 of us that actually survived the cull of series 3. So there was myself, Pogo, and Anita. Yeah. So, and she was only 9 years old, you see. Right. Wow. Yeah. She was 9 years old, and I was 14, and she was 9, and Peter was 12. So Peter was the proper age. Yeah. And she was playing up, and I was playing down. So there's quite a gap between us, but we get on very, very well, and it's we have a really good sort of rapport with each other as well, you know. And so of course Joanne I speak to all the time, but Lisa York I've seen, and you know, and that's been the beauty of what's happened over the last sort of 5 years, is that because of the growth and the explosion really of these fan events. Yeah, that we have managed to get back in contact with each other, and you know, there's been a whole world gone on while we haven't. Yeah. So we were able to, you know, it's been lovely to be able to catch up with them all, and we talk to each other like adults now. Yeah. Rather than children. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So our relationships are very differently because we've all grown up. You know, we were all very immature, a lot of us at the time, but. I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. Oh no, that's excellent. I've just got a few more questions just before we we finish off there. So, other than Dwayne Orpington,
Who was your favourite character on Graingeal?
I'm not going to go for the obvious, to be honest. I'm going to go for Tommy Watson.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The obvious would be Tucker or Zammo. Yeah. Would be Ziggy or something like that. But I'm not. I'd go for Tommy Watson, really, because I think it's because Paul was a really good-looking young fella. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the attention he used to get from the women. I think that's more of why I like to have been Tommy Watson, to be honest. But no, I think that Tommy had a quite. They went on obviously to do Tucker's Luck as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd go with that.
Cool. And is that who if you hadn't played Dwayne, you would have liked to have been Tommy, then, would you?
Yeah, and of course, I should have said that Paul is probably my closest friend, other than Paula as well, obviously, since my Graingeal days.
Yeah.
And I speak to, and he's been a real support for me, especially the last couple of months and what have you. And so we're sort of working on a couple of projects together and stuff like that. So it's been really, really nice. So maybe a bit of favoritism that way. But yeah, so that's the part that I would have liked to have if I didn't have my own. But I was quite happy with what I had. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And then, so my last question then, why do you think there is still such affection for Graingeal? Why are we still talking about it?
Okay. I think it's literally in the fabric of our youth.
Right.
It really is in the fabric of our youth. And I think that we could all identify with somebody in one of the year groups, whoever they were. Uh-huh. You would say to yourself, "Oh, I was very much like so and so. I was like him." And that was the beauty of that program, is that again, I'll go back to the writing of it. Was that I think that Phil probably looked at his own class at school and thought, right, who can I have that can do that, fit that part. But I do think that it literally did mirror what was the reality, what was going on in schools, without the swearing.
Yeah.
So we weren't allowed to swear.
Yeah.
But we did invent flipping heck. That was, one of ours. That's one of ours.
Came very close to swearing on a couple of them, like a couple of times.
As it got on.
Mr. Smart was referred to as smart ass a few times, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah, he was. That was like, whoa, hold on a minute. Did that really happen?
How that one got through, I'll never know.
But what I'll do, Neil, is to close, like you say, this is your last question. But the reality of it is that the fans that we have are like no other. I don't think there's any other show out there that like our fans.
Right.
Because and I can quantify that by literally because it's a bit of escapism, but it's a bit like when you go past Greg's, let's say, and you smell, the donuts. You always feel warm and comfortable, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You think, oh yeah, I could just eat one of those donuts or a sausage roll, or even a sausage on a fork. There we go. Okay, but
nice.
It's the fact our fans have been, and this is the reason that I'm probably so active on the social media as I am, not because I want to be it's because of the people that I've made contact with have been so good to us and so genuine, so nice, and for me, it's about giving them something now. Yeah. Because they've given it to us. They kept us alive. Yeah. They kept the memories of our show alive for, remembering that it stopped. When did it stop? In 2008?
2008, yeah.
Yeah. So it's 13 years later. And we're still talking, and people are still talking about it. Yeah, it's a bit. I feel a bit like the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special. When they're going to talk about Angela Rippon's legs and it, but it does feel like that. So I think it's very much the childhood memories of all of people, and long may it continue. I have to say, and I would like to say a special thank you to everybody that comes onto our groups and then participates, because. When it's our birthdays, any cast member that has a birthday, they literally have over like 200 and odd happy birthday, and it is just so warming, and I'm very thankful.
Excellent. Well, listen, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing talking to you. Obviously, you were there in the infancy of Graingeal, and for you to come on and talk about it, it's been brilliant. So thank you very much, and for anyone who's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Thank you.